3,
Live.
2, 1, hit it. Here we go.
That's my theme. Now listen. I love that.
And you're on.
How you doing, everybody? Welcome back to an hour of SuperMex at To The Point. I have a guest in the studio today. We'll get to that in a second, but as usual, housekeeping up front. Again, a shout out. Last week, I ended up spending 5-10 minutes on a friend of mine that recently passed. He had his viewing, and the funeral was yesterday. And we'll be doing something for him this weekend at the Central Valley Wrestling Association Championships, where we'll be honoring him and, at the very least, a moment of silence, recognize his work with the kids in our area throughout Fresno, Madera. I mean, Gary Quintana literally worked with anybody's kids and gave his time to kids from, at least, north of Madera, south to Selma, Kingsburg, and anybody else that just came in and spent time with him. So well loved, well liked, and, incredibly respected. So that was this past week. Best to you, brother. One of these days, be on the mat again with you. So thank you to everybody who wished well and sent prayers for him and his family, including his young daughter and the rest of the Selma clan that he came from. Thanks again, Gary. Thanks for everything you've done. Okay, a couple things. So I got to get in the habit of doing this as I've got this show. So my two main sponsors to this point that are literally paying me to be on the air, you got to pay the bills. It's Ruben Duran of Residential Bank Corps. He is a lender, a good buddy, actually from the wrestling community too. Got a lot of. You'd be amazed at how many friends in the wrestling community do well in a variety of other things. Ruben is a lender. He has, I think, offices not just in Fresno. He has offices in Porterville. He has an office in Las Vegas, an office in Visalia, and he is just going to open up a brand new office in Hanford. So he's all over the valley. He's valley bred, valley born, raised, from Visalia area, lives in Fresno. And he's just a good guy, does good work, and he's literally paying just so I can get on the air and talk about important issues that affect our community. The other is Mr. Phil Gouroulet. He's also a lender. He is on Shaw. I don't want to butcher his company. I didn't get the. I'm going to do a promo spot for him at some point, and we're going to have that breaking up our live show. At maybe about the halfway point, we'll have a couple commercials. But for most of you out there, I mean, you guys know, I don't want my show to be something where we're just doing advertising, for the entire show. You got to do it because you got to pay the bills, et cetera. But I really, really want 60 minutes as much as possible to be filled with content and issue. And that's kind of where I go. So for those of you that don't know, I'm a former teacher, and I've said that before in some of the past shows. I'm a former teacher, and I literally taught 60 minutes or the full, I think where I was, it was 59 minutes. I taught 59 minutes, and I literally went up to the last minute, last second. Kids hated it because I didn't let them out of the seat early. They didn't get to get at the door and try to hustle to the next class. I literally, it's inviolate to me to not take advantage of every single minute you got, every single second. So I will use as much as I can. Those are my two sponsors, Phil Gouroulet and Ruben Duran, Residential Bank Corps. We'll have more as we go forward. And like I said, paying the bills, those are the housekeeping issues. Couple things. I got some really good feedback. Got some feedback and content or comments about playing the Jason Aldean SNL tribute to Tom Petty. That was right after the Las Vegas shooting. It was crazy. I got online and it was like some people said it wasn't that great a rendition. I don't give it in. It was pretty good, man. I liked it. It was different. It was unique. There's sometimes you can take a good rock song and make it country from a country singer, and it's good because a lot of rock has roots in country. I'm actually an old rockabilly and blues nut from what rock originally came from. So got good comment on that and good comments from, and I'll say this before I get started with our guest here. I got some comments at the River Bluff Carnival River Bluff Elementary in Northwest Fresno. They had their carnival. My buddy and I, Travis Takeuchi, and another friend, we did a booth for Heroes Home Advantage program, a program designed to get more veterans into our community, buying houses in the Northwest side to help stabilize and invigorate our community in a way where you've got good people moving in that are solid, stable, and just, pillars of the community. So got really good feedback from some alumni friends of mine. They really, really like the topics we're talking about on the show. One of them even said, because she works for the district, things that she can't say that she'd love to say, I'm saying for her. So scary, but, I've been emboldened, and even more so. Like, it was going to take much for me anyway, but the feedback was extremely positive from some people that I have a massive respect for. They know who they are. If they're listening, thank you. It's not like I needed that, but it's good to hear, because you're on the right track, and you're raising the issue, and you're talking about things that are also being talked about by others, but for whatever reason they can't speak, or they can't say it to the same degree. Obviously, I'm unfiltered and unhindered. I mean, I'm going to say what I need to say, and we're going to talk about these issues, whether people like it or not. Incidentally, I have been attempted to, there was an attempt to silence me by somebody. That was kind of funny. It's tried, but it's free speech, baby. That's not going to stop anytime this century. Definitely not while I'm still breathing. So I'm still going to raise issue. I'm not, yelling fire in a crowded theater. So unless that's the case, we're talking about issuing policy. So let's get started here. I will begin with, an introduction, so we get a little feedback. So what we've done so far is we've had a show with students from Central High School, and we had a parent last week from Central High School, Mr. Mike Cruz. He has a son at the high school and then a daughter in elementary, so he has interest, obviously, going forward. And today I have a mother who is a Central Unified mother, and she has kids in the system. So I'm going to let her talk and tell us a little bit about herself, so that my listener and audience gets an idea of what the background is and what you're speaking to. Go ahead, Rachel.
Hi, I'm Rachel. I've got 3 kids in a Central Unified School. They are in 6th grade, 3rd grade, and 2nd grade. And I also have family members that are,
wow.
Yeah.
You're busy.
Yeah, we've also got family members that have kids in 8th grade and 6th grade, and younger grades as
All
well.
Central.
Yeah,
Okay.
all Central.
And so and we'll go a little bit further, but just so listener audience, you're aware, we had to haggle about with an actual recording time, because it's not easy getting people during this hour. We're 2 to 3 right now. It's recorded, and then it'll be broadcast on the air tomorrow on the radio, AM 1680, The Answer. And we kind of juggled, and we got to a place, but I'm bringing it up because I want to thank Rachel up front, because she reworked her schedule, and she's here, and somebody's picking up her kids. So these are the things that are going on. And before I let her talk some more, I'm thanking her, and I want my audience and listener to know that it's not easy, putting yourself out there live in front of what is going to be, probably thousands of people. I know that for a fact with radio. And then one of the last videos we had over 1,500 viewers. So she's doing this for the good of our community. She's raising issue because things need to be addressed, not just for her kids. And we were just talking about that prior to the show beginning, but it's not just about our kids. It's about all those kids. So I want to thank her up front, and I want my audience to know it's not easy, putting yourself out there and speaking truth, because, it might not be a pleasant thing, but it still needs to be said. So go ahead, let's do this. So you have, let me get that again. So you have one in, give me the grades again.
6th grade.
6th grade.
Daughter.
And so she's at Liddell.
Yes.
Okay, so they're at Liddell, so they'd be going to Rio.
Yes.
Next year. So Rio Vista.
Yes.
And then the next one?
Is 3rd grade.
3rd grade.
Son. And a 2nd grade son.
Son. So 2 boys and a girl.
Yeah.
Involved in any sports, activities?
Soccer.
What do you got? Soccer?
Yeah. Right.
Soccer's the easiest, isn't it?
I'm the coach. I'm not so
Are
sure.
you? I was like, sucker. I'm not going to say anything, because I did coach for a year too. I mean, it's so difficult, because the turnover for coaches at elementary it's rough. Yeah. I mean, if you don't do it, I'm going to guess, if you didn't do it, there wouldn't be a coach, right?
Pretty much.
Okay, so.
I love my soccer team though. They're
yeah.
good kids.
So, you guys in season right now?
Yes.
You're in season.
U8 boys.
And so how are you doing?
They're doing good.
What's good? Is it like 50-50 or?
It's close to like 75-25.
Oh, okay,
We're
killer.
doing pretty good.
That's savage.
My boys, they play. All
Now,
night,
since
all
you
the
guys
time.
begin, I mean, it's kind of like it's like, I want to say, I'm related to the other fall seasons, but you're probably finishing up,
Yeah.
getting close to postseason,
Yes.
and you guys have postseason and go to championship, stuff like that?
Not U8 boys.
No?
But it's just teaching. U8 boys is like trying to just cement the fundamentals.
Okay. Yeah,
Making sure they're going the right direction.
Teaching, yeah.
Lots of patience. There is some yelling, but it's encouragement yelling. It's not the garish, scary.
Right.
It's not like football.
That
parenting.
comes later, right?
It's not like football
later.
parenting.
No.
That's a little intimidating.
Well, even that might not be, and it's funny to think, so we're going to talk about your kids, and I want people to get scope on, the type of parent we have in the community. We're all just regular people. We've got kids. They're involved in things. They've got to get good grades. They've got to learn something. They got to be involved in sport or other activities so they get some social skills, et cetera, right?
Yeah,
That's what you do.
need more social skills than just what's taught in school.
Exactly. I mean, it's not enough. And when you really think about it, what do? They just hustle in the class, and then when they're in their class, they're supposed to be learning.
Yeah.
And then I'll be the first to say that needs to take place, because the whole purpose, and I've said this more than a few times on the show prior, is that the whole purpose to education is to what? Get a child an education. They have to learn something, and they have to be more than adequate, tolerable by the time they're done with their 12 grades and they move on. They're a productive citizen, but they better have learned something in the process. I mean, I'm kind of going through a little issue, and you're kind of on the spear point. You're coming forward. You've got. I'm going to tell you right now. You want to hear, but I mean, middle school is another critter, and then high school. Wow. I mean, you've got to be prepared. There's a lot coming.
Yeah.
Especially if you got 3.
Yeah.
If you've got 3 right now. I don't even want to imagine your night.
But he's almost 10 months old, but I still got some time with him.
Jesus, woman, you're gonna have a run there where you are just like hyper busy.
Yeah.
No joke. I mean, because if you're active.
I turn and burn constantly every day. People are like, "How do you manage it?" I'm like, "It's not just me. I really have to help. I can help."
you just do it.
Yeah.
There's no. If you sat and thought about the reasons why you couldn't. It wouldn't get done, which is what we talked about a little earlier, right?
Yeah.
It's like the minute you begin to think it's not possible, it's not going to be possible.
Yeah.
I had a drill sergeant tell me that a long time ago. If you, for that split second, if you begin to believe that it's not possible, it's not.
Exactly.
You just killed yourself. It's not happening. So, okay, so you got 4.
Yeah.
4. Yeah, I don't want to scare you too much, but I think you kind of know. It's just if you're involved and you're active, and they have to get good grades and learn in the class, and they're involved in activities, sport, etc.
I also do scouts.
Woo! That's a world. Okay, so let's do this. And like I said, we draw scopes. So we want people to know that you're a mom, you're a parent, you've got kids in the system right now. And what I like to tell people, like we did this with Mike Cruz last week. He's got one at the high school, and he's got a little girl that is in an elementary at Harvest. If I'm not mistaken, Mike, if I'm incorrect, buzz me. I think you're probably watching anyway. At Harvest, and let's just begin picking. I'm going to pick up where we kind of left off with the kids we had from the high school, and related to what Mike was talking about last week to you. And so it kind of ends up like this. There are things that are good at the high school and things that clearly need work at the high school. And we are at a juncture where some parents are going to make a decision to not stay in the district because if they don't see something changing or moving forward with regard to the high school, then they're going to move on, or they're going to find, for lack of something better, a better high school for them, and they're going to move their child. And a lot of it is just literally, a sense of belief or trust that it's going to happen, it's going to take place, and then so you're going to commit and you're going to stay. That's what it ends up being. And so I will tell you pointedly that has gone on where we have lost people because they just gave up and said, okay, these things are not going to happen. And so then this is where I get specific with it. So as of right now, after talking to the students, the high school students when they were here a couple weeks ago, and then talking to Mike, because Mike really, really is concerned that with what his son is dealing with, a couple items that these are not debatable, by the way, listener audience. These are not debatable items. Things like busing, missing class because you're busing, sitting on the floor because there's not enough room on the buses, The lunch lines are so massive that there's not enough time, even if you stood in line the entire time, to get something to eat because we're overpopulated. These aren't debatable items, you know, and I don't want it to be so hard, you know, and gruff that, you know, it turns people off. But I have said that about my show before. If you got a, you know, queasy stomach, please don't listen. You know, I don't want to hurt you, but it's not easy peeling off a bandage, right? You got to see that ugly wound, you got to clean it out. So Mike brought, you know, some of those things up because he's concerned that the things that his son is dealing with right now, his daughter will be dealing with in 10 years. And in our world, in mine, you know, the SuperMex world, that's not acceptable. That can't be acceptable. The minute we begin to accept it, then it becomes the norm, which, by the way, it is the norm. So that's where we get to, you know, where you are right now. Mike is at a point where he feels, and he's not the only one, by the way. I'm using him as an example because he was on the show last week, but he's not the only one. I mean, I have friends that are gone last year in middle school, and they're at another school. Some Clovis Unified, one at Edison, Minarets, the new high school up in, and then of course university. We lose kids to university every year, so that's going on and continuing, and so we lose them. And I'm actively, so for the listener out there, for Rachel too, I'm actively trying to stop that bleeding. I want it to stop, but it isn't going to stop unless we do something about it. In which case, I'm not willing to wait on a school system that I've been waiting on for a couple decades to actually do it. I really do believe, I mean, and I want my listener out there to understand this, and I want our people in Central Unified to understand it. And just in general in education, if you're any listener at all, maybe you're not in Central, I don't care. Stop accepting excuses and don't wait for somebody else to act for you. Do it yourself. In which case, Rachel's here, she's doing it herself. You almost have to do it. If you don't, who will? You really want to, I don't know about you, but that's where I'm at. I cannot accept somebody else being passed the ball to because I was not willing to myself. Mm-hmm. I don't do that, you know, and so you're here, you're proof that you're not. So speak a little bit to that, because that's kind of one of the main issues is that we're losing people. They come into the elementary system, they move into our district with thoughts of what it's going to be, and then they become jaded and they eventually move out. And I'm not talking about like millions, okay? But it is a number. There is a number there, and it is happening. And to ignore it and say that it doesn't exist is a lie on the surface. And anybody that says that, I'll argue with that to my grave, because it is happening right now. So you tell me where you are, what you see, you know, and I know we spoke a little bit before the show started, you know, you're happy in general with Liddell, with where it's at right now.
They're fantastic.
Yeah, so you tell me going forward, because here's the funny thing is I know there are a lot of Liddell parents that have moved on to other areas.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so let's if you're okay with it, you tell me about what you see there and then what you think, what it becomes as you go forward as your kids are moving up the system.
Well, I love Liddell, and I've done everything humanly possible to keep my kids there, because I do technically live in Fresno Unified. But originally, before I moved, I lived in Central.
Right.
But I transferred my kids to Liddell because Liddell had the reputation of being an exceptional school. The teachers were focused. Okay. Every staff member knows every kid's name. They know that if they have issues or what their academic challenges are, they know what they are and they know how to address them, and they're very, very hands-on. And I love that. And I honestly think that every school should be that way, no matter where it is.
Agreed.
And
so then at the very minimum, you're talking about there's an expectation that you knew was there before you made that decision.
I looked into different schools because I didn't like how Fresno Unified was structured.
Right.
I don't really like how Central Unified is structured. I really don't.
How so? What do you mean by structure? I mean, and I'll help you with it.
The bureaucratic BS.
Okay, so let me help you out there. I'll help you out there. So it's like it's comprehensible for our listener. I really do believe, and I've done a lot of research and study myself. I think I'm a history teacher, a former history teacher. I did a lot of research and study, a lot of background on the history of a compulsory education in Western societies, obviously including the United States. Okay, what does that mean? What is a compulsory education? A free public education that is understood in a normal society that's progressive or not, you know, in the caveman days and you know, in the Paleolithic age. something that's needed and necessary to build or have an informed and knowledgeable citizenry, meaning they're fully invested, they're a part, they're productive, they do things, they can read, write, balance a checkbook, etc. So that goes back a bit. Where I'm at, what I'm seeing now is most tend toward the bureaucracy. Most tend that way, So I will say this, and with my friends in Fresno Unified, because I have a lot of friends all over the place in this area in education. There are some good things about Fresno Unified. I will say that, entirely. We brought that up, I think, one of the early shows when I was with Jeff Crow on Spotlight on the Valley. See, Jeff, I plugged you. We talked about like Edison and their AP program, their advanced placement program. You can quote me on this. I still say it. I believe it is the most comprehensive and best AP program for high school kids in the region, including better than, not necessarily like apples for apples, than even University High. University High has less AP courses, but very comparable. I mean, some of the regular courses are like AP courses, just without the test, right? So there are good things, and then there's a lot. Manchester Gate, I can go on and on. So there are a lot of good things. Let's leave it at that in Fresno Unified. However, for the norm, for the majority, it's a mess in terms of, like you say, the bureaucracy, the perception that there's a bureaucracy. And it's hard to move things because they're so big. I'll throw another word out to you. It's another history word. It's bureaucratic and Byzantine. When you use Byzantine without the exact dictionary definition, when you say something's Byzantine in process, or it means that it's big, it's convoluted, it's like all these little twists and turns, and if you don't know them all, you're going to get lost. That's what it is. That's literally Byzantine. I'm breaking it down for you, my listeners. So in a way, what I'm telling you now, because you brought that up, with where we are in Central, is that we are, and this is something that I really want people to understand. I'm glad you brought it up. I didn't say the bureaucracy, but I feel it, believe me. If we're not careful in Central, we are on a path to head that way or another way. The ugly way is we'll just continue to grow. We just keep getting bigger because population increase, because our area is the targeted growth area for the region, for city of Fresno and the county. We're going to keep getting bigger. And I will say it, bigger doesn't always mean better.
No, it doesn't.
It does not. I come from a system that I still live by, United States military. And for me, it was some of the very best units are the small ones. They're just really, really good, efficient, deadly, for that anyway. Those small special ops units, there's a reason why. They're not big. They're not massive. They can move rapidly and execute. We in Central are getting big really, really fast. We've grown by leaps and bounds. I'm going to say it again. That doesn't mean everything's great. We've not handled our growth well. I will say that openly.
No.
The high school situation, which we'll get to, a little bit more in depth now, is part and parcel of what we're talking about. We just got big, and they didn't keep growing, keep pace with the growth.
We're breaking ground on new houses right there across the street from Glacier and Harvest.
Right. Which is actually what Mike brought up last week.
Where are all those people going to go? Where are all those kids going to go? Because those schools are already overflowing.
We're just growing. So let's get to that in 1 second. I'm going to finish up with what we talked about. So you got Byzantine, right? That's another word for you today. It's hard for me to not be a teacher. It's like I want people to learn something. But Byzantine, bureaucracy. We are in danger as a school district of moving in that direction where we're just getting bigger. Doesn't mean we're getting better. We're just bigger. And that's not good, because when that takes place, then kids become numbers, and they're just moving through a system.
And then that's not be numbers. They need to be individuals.
Yeah, they need to be individuals that are looked at and viewed as a person and an individual with a necessity of education, for education.
Yep.
And that's every one of them. I think they say, well, that's impossible.
It's again, not possible.
Well, it's like, as well, I was telling you before we started, right? If you begin with it's impossible, then damn it, guess what? It's going to be impossible, right?
Exactly.
So I wanted to, to kind of clarify for my audience that you see that, and you're a regular mom dealing with regular life. You've got 4 kids, and you see the bureaucracy that we can become in some cases. And like you said, you said it. I'm not, speaking for you on that issue. You see that becoming what we are in Central as a whole, because we're just getting bigger. So that's a danger. So you need to be listening out there, audience. If you have kids that are not quite yet to the high school, and we're going to get that in a second, coming up through the system, parents are seeing that now, and they're beginning to ask that question. Rachel's asking that question, like, okay, where are we going, with it, and how do we adjust that? So bureaucracy and the move to that. I've said this. So what's the alternative? Just so I give the audience an answer. The alternative is to come up on our own metric, because we're a unique, isolated thing out here. Us, our community. We're not quite country. We're not quite city. A little bit of both. We're not quite old central. We're not quite new central. A little bit of both. We're white, black, brown, blue, green. We're rich. We're poor. We're everything. We're kind of a crazy good mix, I think. I really believe that. Yeah. And if we used it properly, we can be incredible because of it. So what I'm telling people is like, oh, you want to be you can be like Clovis. No. Absolutely not. Don't want to be like Clovis. Not. No
offense to Clovis, but no, thank you.
Not in that capacity. What here's the thing. This is what you emulate. You emulate their successes as they have put work into being successful at things. Mm-hmm. We can also be successful at things, but not on their model. Not everything on their model, the way they do things, because we're not them. We're an entirely different socioeconomic makeup. We're an entirely different community. We have different wants and needs. And I'm going to use a military term. It goes, use your units in accordance with their capabilities. In other words, who are we? What are we? I think we need to identify who the hell we are first, and then we get to that point to where we could actually become something. We still haven't gotten to that. We're still really, really divided and separate. But we try to keep Central unified, but it's going so fast, and I think that's kind of what you're getting at in terms of bureaucracy. It's grown so fast that we haven't had a hard handle on how we've grown.
Yeah, and we don't have enough people to keep it.
Right. So let's go to that. Let's get to like we're gonna, so your kids are elementary, going into middle school now, mm-hmm. And Rachel's beginning to ask the questions that she should be asking, like, okay, what's in store for my kids? What's in store for my daughter, and then the son's coming after, et cetera. And what are my expectations? What do I have to look forward to? And so I'll tell you, my daughter's a junior at the high school now, and in some ways you can interview me too. It's a free flowing thing, right? I've got a son and I've got a daughter. My daughter's there now. She's a junior. And I can tell you, explicitly that there are things my daughter deals with that I don't want your kids to have to deal with. But I don't want them to have to, because it's not conducive to a great education. It's an education. They're going to get an education, but it doesn't mean they're going to get the best of the education. My daughter misses 10 minutes out of her U.S. history course. I think one to the other. She has to shuttle. And we've worked it out to where we've minimized that. My wife and I have to do that. Like, we'll go pick her up or something. So we're having to create additional work to compensate for what isn't already there. And my thing is, like, not all parents can do that. I know when I was in the system, I couldn't. My dad died when I was a little boy, so it was my mom, and she worked literally from 9 to 9 every day. So we couldn't. Guys like me couldn't do that. The funny thing, though, incidentally, is that I didn't have to deal with shuttling when I went to Central. There was no shuttle. It was the Central High School, and I didn't shuttle. And I've argued, and I've been talking to more of my alumni friends, that we actually, I really do believe, this is scary, but at a base level, because I was just an average student at best. At best, I was just not into school and not a good student, not a good person in general. I was just a little in trouble all the damn time. But I got a good, fundamental, basic education that still serves me well now. I can write better than tolerably. I can speak, obviously, better than tolerably. And I got that from a Central Unified, Central High School education. And I didn't have to shuttle. And I didn't have to bus. And I could actually get in the line and eat my food and still have the time to kick with my buddies before I went back to class. Our kids don't have that now.
They need it. They need that time, especially when they're eating. They need to be able to eat because they need
nutrition.
They need the nutrition. They also need to take the time to decompress their brains and talk with other students that are their age, or a little bit older, or a little bit younger, mm-hmm. depending on their social status or maturity level. Right. They need to have all of that. And if it's not being provided for them, we need to figure out how to give it to them. If that means rearranging the schedules in school or whatever, we need to figure it out, because if the kids aren't getting what they need, how can we expect them to be the best adults they can be?
How are they going to get the education that gives them the best tools? Here's where it's at, to compete. to be competitive with other schools and other kids, right?
Yeah.
Like, what are we doing to maximize our possibilities for our kids? Use your units in accordance with the capabilities. Put your units in positions to succeed. What are we doing to make every possibility for them that there's going to be a success on the end of their road? You know,
Yeah.
that's so let's do that. You know, we've talked about, you know, we're about halfway through our show, but we've talked about, you know, where your kids are. You're happy with Liddell.
Mm-hmm.
Incidentally, it was funny. You never even brought up sport. You just we went out because I brought that up. But you talked about when you looked at Liddell, you heard good things about staff, and the quality of education, one-to-one. You know, knowing your students, being involved, being concerned with what the education is, meaning teacher and community. You know, teacher, community, staff, and I do know that. You know, Liddell does have that. River Bluff has that too.
Yeah.
Some others, you know, in our community also have that. Some others do not.
I honestly think that it needs to be implemented in every school because
Right.
schools seem to do better when the parents are involved. Because then they can hear it from parents and they're like, okay, this is something that needs to be addressed immediately.
If parents are listening to, yes.
If the parents are listened to, but the staff at the school has to be open-minded enough to take the constructive criticism.
Right.
Because if you can see a problem and address it constructively and not see it as an attack on you as an individual or your skills, just look at it and say, okay, this is the problem. These are the steps that we need to take to address the problem and get it done as a community, it would turn out better. But a lot of the time they get, not my problem, not my job. They need to suck it up, and there needs to be a crossover with every employee where, you know, you can cover that little bit of a gap. So you're not, oh, this isn't in my job description.
That's not in my job description. I mean, I think that's
because that's what I've heard a lot.
Yeah, without you know, minimizing that, I really do feel that's kind of the case in general with education. You have some good spots here or there, like maybe a school in a system is good, but I think it's becoming more the norm that it's not. You know, the sense of community. Yeah. The sense of community where there's an obligation and an inherent responsibility on the part of a community member to feel like it's necessary to educate everyone's child. Yeah. I mean, I've dealt with some things recently, and I won't go into too much detail, but I have argued for the larger number of students in something, and argued that we need to take care of, or provide for, or do things with all of them, not just a handful, with the louder parents or the more involved parents. And I've been kind of looked at with some blank stares, and in some cases, like, you know, no, like I want to take care of mine.
Because it's not just about your daughter or my kids. Right. It's about all of them. It's about every kid that's going to come through Central Unified now and in the future. If we don't take care of the busing situation and the lunch, that's going to lead to other issues down the line that's going to affect our kids and how they become adults later. Yeah. So okay, two ways to look at that. One, for sure, that they are the result of what they're getting current, right? Yeah. And the 180 opposite of that is on the other end. That also becomes part of the culture and the environment where it's accepted and acceptable. Where we've gone, and I'm going to say this, and let's just drop this on the table. I want to educate you in a good way on things. And you can say, I've been in the district a little longer. You know, my family's been here a long time, generations. My daughter's third generation, proud of that. But I was here in the early 90s when, you know, into the early to mid 90s when they built the East Campus in 96. And that was 21 years ago now, 21 years ago. And I was told back then, and not just me, but a lot of us, a lot of people, a lot of community, a lot of involved people at that time were told that was a temporary solution, that they would bus the freshmen over to the West Campus, and then they would let them come back sophomore year and go to the East. And this convoluted, these stopgap measures, these Band-Aids to, you know, fix these little issues, these problems. Those problems have just compounded, and now there's just bandages on top of bandages.
that problem was never solved because it was supposed to be a temporary solution. So 21 years ago, when they built the East Campus, and we'll get into that in a second because we'll talk about the East Campus and the new one in a second. They built the East Campus, and it was only supposed to be a temporary solution. It was supposed to be 2 fully fledged high schools, both of them. The West Campus, which to me is central. You know, for all those my alumni friends out there that are from that time, it's central. It's not West and East Campus. I don't like the distinction, by the way. You're West, you're East. I don't dig on that, man. I mean, to me, it's just central. You're central, right? Mm-hmm. So anyway, it was that 96, 21 years ago, temporary. It was supposed to be 2 fully fledged, fully modernized, fully teched out campuses that if you were a kid in Central Unified and you were a high school student, you can go to either one and maybe the programs could differ, meaning maybe you go here for medical, maybe you go here for engineering. But the basic fundamental education would be equitable and the same, equal. If not entirely exactly the same, but equal. Every kid gets a good education, right?
Yeah.
And then you maybe go here for specific things because maybe I want to head down this road later, this route for my career. And then you can choose one or the other. That's what it was supposed to be. So clearly, that's 21 years ago, Rachel. And you're looking like, well, it was 21 years ago, it's 2 decades ago, right? What the hell happened? Why aren't we there? And so you understand where I'm at. We talked a little bit prior, we'll talk a little bit after, but you understand there are a lot of people like me that, you know, and I'll say this for my friends out there that, you know, that get those who do know me and actually talk to me without any preconceived notion. Once you listen to me, like, okay, there's thought here, and there's clearly background and knowledge about what has gone before, without any ulterior motive other than exposing and bringing out the things that have not been done. And then what I always do, I always tell people, don't take my word for it alone. Find out for yourself. Because if a guy like me is telling you to go find out for yourself, it's probably because I'm okay with letting you find out for yourself, because I know what you're going to end up getting anyway. You're going to end up getting exactly what I'm telling you, which is 21 years ago we were made promises. Those promises didn't come to pass. So now you can understand why there are a lot of us that are just tired. You know, we don't want to hear it anymore. I had hoped my daughter would see a new high school. That's gone. You know, I have a young man in here. What is that? Bring it to the door. I have a young man who's 5 years out of, what does it say? Oh, yeah. Okay, I have a young man that's 5 years out of Central High, and his father's a good buddy of mine, and he's this kid's 3rd generation as well, and they thought he was getting a new high school, and it's like a running joke. They're like, oh, we're going to get a new high school, they're going to split the others. Never happened. None of that ever happened. So to get to this point, that's the thing that I think would concern, you know, you kind of brought that up. You're good now. You're getting to Rio Vista. And I'm going to hazard a guess and say that for the most part, you'll get, for the most part, what you need there too. And then you're going to have to make some hard decisions. And so that my audience is clear, including the people listening that don't like hearing what I have to say, but they listen so they can try to catch me saying something false. You know who you are. And I'm glad you're listening to me anyway, because you're increasing my views. That time, we need to actively, I'm saying it, I'm putting it out. I'm creating a show just so we can address these. I want you to stay. I want you and people like you to stay.
I've honestly already started looking into different high schools. I've been looking into Minarets.
And I'm still,
Minarets,
Jesus. I'm still going to actively try to keep you. You see what I mean? I want you to stay
as loyal as I can, but you know, if it's
loyalty has to be returned.
Yeah, and if it's not, don't.
It's again, it's like I'm a military guy. I grew up old fashioned. I was, you know, kind of hard scrabble raised by 2 grandfathers in World War II. Straight laced guys. You look you in the eye and they tell the truth, and you don't play games. Okay, and it's like you do what you can, but you know, trust and loyalty. Don't be tossing those words about. Don't go tossing and asking for my trust and loyalty if you're not willing to give me the same in return up front.
Exactly.
Matter of fact, I don't ask for anything. As a matter of fact, we just met, you know, for the first time. I'm not asking you to trust me or be loyal to me or to the district or the rest. I'm asking you to find out for yourself. Mm-hmm. Because then when you make that decision for yourself, it'll be one based out of what's best for you, not what's best for what I want. I'm saying that I want to keep more people. Part of the rationale for why we're doing this show and others like it and going forward in the future is to bring these things out so that they get addressed and we don't have to lose people like you and others. That's what I want. I want that more than anything. I don't want, I've joked, I was with a guy, not a kid anymore, a guy, graduated in the 90s, late 90s from Central. He's doing well. He seems, squared away. And we talked about, Central and people leaving Central. And he was like, they got to get that right, man. I mean, like, it's like we have no history before a certain time, and you get a lot of new people, and all the new people don't know that there have been good things in the past, and all they see is what's not good now. And he goes, they got to kind of get a hard handle on that. And there were good things here prior. And I will say that there were some really good things. I've already told you, I really do fundamentally believe right now that a guy like me, the norm for a school, I got a better base education than what the kid is getting now in Central High. I know that for a fact.
Oh yeah, I've seen the curriculum. I've heard stories. I know kids that are going to Central.
Let me ask you this.
Right
Let's do this for the audience. I mean, so you've done some homework. You've done some research.
Yeah.
You have an idea. You're kind of like up in the air as to whether you continue and stay. And then it's going to be harder for you because you've got multiple kids. And let's do this thing, because I'm not shy about putting things on the table that need to be. So you've got a daughter that's going into Rio.
Yeah.
You've got boys coming after her, and you've got one much later.
Yes,
much later, a little dude. So what should be done is you're gonna. People are not gonna like this, but it's the truth, because this is the way families and people think. Because you have kids, you have to think about your children first and your family. All right. So you're gonna have to make a decision as to if you were to move or to go to another district, you went somewhere else. You got to decide on when and which grades your kids are, and which one goes first, or how long do you wait till the other gets to middle school or not. You see my point?
Yeah.
I mean, you those are family decisions. I mean, I'm dealing with another friend that I'm trying to get to move back from Clovis. I'm trying to get him to move back to Central. He's Central alumni, and his son just started in high school, and he's got one in middle school. And I'm trying to okay, before it gets too late, you got to get over. Otherwise, kid. And here's the scary thought. Heaven forbid we actually think about what the kids are dealing with, right? Friends, relationships, developing relationships with teachers and systems and methods, depending on the school system or where you're at.
Yep.
Those things are all they have to be factored in. If you don't factor them in, you're not making a decision that's best for the child. You're making a decision best for who knows who, but it's not based on what is best for the child. You've got 4, you've got 3 in the system current, you got 1 at middle school. You're going to have to think about, okay, do we go to Central, or do we just cut that right now and move on before my daughter goes to high school and the others get into middle school? So I'm saying that's ugly, and it sounds ugly. My friends in Central are like, why are you even saying that? Because it's the truth. It's true. You have to make those decisions.
You got to make the decisions,
right?
Because honestly, when you become a parent, it stops being about you and starts being about that child. Even at birth, you're just like, okay, school, high school, college, and I got to do that 4 times. I'm just like, ugh. But
yeah.
You have to look at the schools around you. You have to look at it. You have to look at your child's personality, and if they do have developmental issues, like a couple of my children do,
okay,
what is going to be best for them?
That's a whole new monkey wrench, because that's certain school systems have better programmatic addressings of depending on what it is, right? Mm-hmm. Some do real well, some don't even bother at all.
Yeah, some are just like,
in which case you have to make the decision that's best for your child.
Yeah.
And at that point, nobody can fault you. As a matter of fact, I'll say this, I talked to a buddy of mine yesterday we had a long conversation about the flag situation, the flag thing. And I said, he was like, I know what you're going to say, but I want to hear it from you. You need to do what's best for you.
mm-hmm.
And he goes, that's SuperMex. It's not about what's best for me or what I think. It's what's best for you. You're a part of a larger body of individuals. It's called our country and our society. And if you can't make decisions that are best for you, why the hell do we have a constitution? Why do we have rights?
Yeah.
Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Yeah.
Or a couple weeks ago for the kids, it was life, liberty, and the pursuit of being able to go to the bathroom. Because they had to get on the bus, and they would they couldn't go to the bathroom because they had to get on the bus. If they didn't get on the bus, they missed the class. Then they have to go to RC, Responsibility Center, and sit in there and do nothing.
Yeah.
Crazy. That's
ridiculous.
It's a lot. So let's do this. So we still got about a quarter of a show. let me do this as like kind of a little bit break, and then we're going to get into some meat and potatoes to finish up on the high school and the situation as it is right now with the campuses. Do we have, Woody, do we have a phone number? What's the phone number for the show? You write it for me? Right. Okay. So for my listeners, 442-1680, AM 1680, the answer. So I did get a few calls over the last few weeks, and I appreciate it and got input and feedback regarding the issues that we're talking about. Some people weren't even from Central. They just liked hearing some lucid comment, in-depth comment on education in general. Because obviously I've got more than enough, material here to talk about in terms of what we're doing. So 442-1680, if you're listening Facebook Live, that's the phone number for the studio. This will not air on the radio until tomorrow in my time slot of 3 to 4, the SuperMex show, to the point, 3 to 4 tomorrow. You can reach me at 442-1680, leave a message with the phone number, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Or, and I'm getting better about this, audience, so you can also, and this is probably the easiest way, is go or punch in on your Facebook, SuperMex International. Facebook friend me or send me a message that way, and I'll get it. And I've been better about, making sure I'm up to speed on social media, and I've even hired a young dude. It's going to be my production assistant that syncs me and coordinates all my social media platforms and things that we discuss. So 442-1680, the answer. That's live, or excuse me, not live now, but it'll be on the air tomorrow on the radio. 3 to 4 is my time slot. And then you can reach me at any time on Facebook at SuperMex International. It's Richard Martinez. It's easier, believe it or not, it's easier to reach me by punching in SuperMex International than it is Richard Martinez. There's more than a few of us in this universe. Multiple universes, by the way, alternate realities, not this wormhole. So SuperMex International, if you want to comment or you want to bring up issue, or if you might want to be on the show at some future date. We're going to wrap up the Central Unified things within a couple of weeks. So it's not like we will not totally revisit it, but I'm taking as much information as I can so we can start action on the things that I'm talking about with Rachel, the things that I talked about with Mike Cruz last week, the things that I talked about with the 4 students the week prior, and the things that I talk about next week when I have teachers. I'm going to have teachers, and they're going to give us their perspective on how we can make the system better so they can actually teach. They can actually do their damn job, and a good job, so they can actually get into the meat and potatoes of what the whole thing's about, a teacher and a student in a classroom learning. Heaven forbid, right? That's scary. So 442-1680, if you want to reach me by phone at the radio station, or SuperMex International on Facebook, and you can friend me or just send me a message and comment, if you choose to. So let's get to this last piece here, this last little segment. So as of right now, if you don't know Rachel, and you probably do because it sounds like you've kind of done your homework, we have 3 campuses: the East Campus, the West Campus where I went to school, and the West Arts Center, which is like a mile down the road from the West Campus. It's the old Pershing High School, which was in the past a continuation school, and they converted that to an art center to make use of the space. So kids can shuttle 3 different places. They can shuttle 3 different places depending on what they have for a schedule, and it's spread out over miles. And so that's what we talked about with the kids. And it was like, wow, some of the things they brought up, I would have never considered. Like the one boy, like, I just want to go pee. I was like, I almost laughed. I was like, what do you mean? He goes, pee. I can't, if I go pee, I won't make the bus. If I don't make the bus, I got to go to RC. Then I'm marked absent from that class. And he started lining this out. And I'm like, how the hell did we ever get to this where the kid, a child, a student, is doing their job, but we are not making it possible for them to do their job? At this point, it's not the kid's fault anymore. It's not a student's fault.
It's ours.
And so you're with me on that, and I appreciate it. Like I said, we just met, but I think you kind of feel me on that. It's just, I don't want to pass the buck. I don't want to just say it's their fault, okay? But I did specifically point out, and I want to be really, really clear about this for my listeners who are listening that don't really want to listen to me, but they want to hear what I have to say because they want to be able to use it later. I like you guys. Keep increasing my views. It's not a student's fault. That's simple. And I had one person tell me, well, yeah, you tell the truth as you see it. And I'm like, this isn't like alternative reality, fake news stuff. This is simple. Okay, if a student is not in his seat because he has to catch a bus to go to another campus, there's no alternative. There's no fake here. That's fact.
No, they need to have, like you said, across the board, the same standard education at every site.
Right.
And then if they want to do the specialization of medical or engineering or whatever, they shouldn't be bused from point A to point B so they can do one class. That is retarded.
It's crazy.
That is on a whole other level of stupid.
Because all it does is create more problems. And that's really what it's doing. It's creating more problems.
Yeah.
And it keeps the kid out of the class.
Yep.
So what I was saying was like, I think we'll agree, it's not a student's fault.
No.
It's not their fault anymore.
No,
okay. And in essence, it's not even the parents' fault because we don't have choice.
It is whoever does the education and decides what is going to be taught at each site, it's on them.
Right. So let me take you right up the ladder because I want to crystallize this, and we're gonna, we pinpoint. You can raise issue, but if you're not offering solution, then what the hell are you doing? I don't do that. I raise issue, but I will point some things out that you can do to actively change that. So work with me. It's not a student's fault.
No.
Okay. It's not parents' fault because we don't write those schedules and do all that, right?
No.
It's not, and you're gonna laugh about this. It's not the president's fault. It's not the governor's fault.
No.
It's not the mayor's fault.
No, it's the district's fault.
It's nobody else's fault other than leadership that makes decisions on how we do our business in this system, our isolated, unified school system. Okay, that's where it rests. It's nobody else's fault.
Maybe we should have them come out of their nice, comfy offices and their nice, comfy chairs and have a day in the life of a student from point A, getting on the bus at 6:30, 5:45 in the morning, whenever they've got to go stand at the bus stop. Start them on that right there.
Yeah.
And follow the students all the way through to the end of the day at like 6:30.
And you don't get to pee.
No. Day in the life of a student. Not being able to go to the bathroom because they got to make a bus.
Yeah.
Not being able to get through the lunch line because they didn't plan it correctly.
Or sitting on the bus floor because there are no seats.
Yeah, and heaven forbid if that bus gets into an accident, it's the district's fault for not making sure that we've got enough
That was
buses.
the other thing. Okay, we raised that too. Is that time when we had the kids? It's not the bus driver's fault either, by the way, because one of them brought up, like, well, the bus driver went ballistic on me. I see how that happens, okay, because they're put in position to have to make decisions that are not good for the kids. The kids get mad at the bus driver. The bus driver gets mad at the kids. My thing was this. We're pointing all the wrong fingers at all the wrong people. It's not their fault. We're putting them in position to fail.
Yep.
So it's not their fault.
No.
But what ends up happening is because it's like at a base level, like person to person, all the energy and oxygen gets sucked up in that particular instance. Meaning if a bus driver is yelling at a student or a teacher's yelling at a student because he didn't get to class in time, it's not their fault, but that's almost always where it ends up. It doesn't go beyond that, and it doesn't get solved beyond that.
See, I wouldn't, if it was my kid and my kid came to me and said, Mom, I had to sit on the floor today on the bus, I'd be like, okay.
That's how
I wouldn't even talk to the bus driver because it's not the bus driver's fault.
Right.
I would find the person who dispatches the buses, get a hold of him, their supervisor, and follow that chain all the way up to whoever it is in the district. And I would be blowing up their phone every single day to the point where if they saw it on caller ID, they'd go hide in their car.
I think that, and I'm not going to say this like directly because I can't know for sure. But I know that other parents have raised those issues. I know that other parents have made the attempt. And then what you usually get is, oh, just have so-and-so call me. And then you never hear about it again. And then here's the scary thing, and I want you to think about this. And then it continues.
I will show up at the district and be like, who is the head of the transportation?
Yeah.
And I would speak to that person.
If it's raised,
speaking until they listen.
If it's raised, because I know that some parents, it's been like Keeping Central Unified. Shout out to, where we get a lot of our information on the Facebook page, Keeping Central Unified. And parents vent there. Some parents don't like the fact they vent, but you know what? There's got to be some forum for something.
You would think the districts would want to cover their backsides and go, okay, X amount of students fit on a bus safely. We need to put more buses out for the students, because what happens if that bus gets hit or gets into an accident and a student gets hurt? Those parents are going to sue the district because their children aren't safe.
Yeah, never mind the fact that something can happen.
Yeah, you would think that they're like, I want to keep my job. I want to have job security. So wouldn't that make them think
Right.
maybe I need to be doing my job better?
One of the kids brought up, like, I'm telling you, it's when you talk to a kid and it's unfiltered and they're just straight with you and they don't feel like they have to play any games because you're not going to like try to take them to task on anything, meaning they feel like they're comfortable with you and they can tell you the truth.
Oh, kids,
Man, we learned some things. I mean, I learned some things from them and I was like freaking out. But they brought that up. They're like, Mister, it's like, Ms. Martinez, you know, they say 3 to a seat, but come on, 3 kindergartners?
Yeah, those,
you can't do that.
We've been on some buses.
You can't do that.
I'm sorry. Three sixth graders don't fit on one of those seats.
I know. But it's 3 to a seat. I don't think so. I don't think so.
No.
But I think one of the girls brought up, okay, what if there's sport, like for after school stuff, and your football player brings pads on.
Mm-hmm.
Pads will take up half a seat, at least you can take up a seat by yourself.
Yeah.
Okay, so you have all these other things that are not factored into, and you're like, wait a minute, we've been in education a long damn time. Shouldn't these things have been thought out in advance?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and if they're not, why not? Because we're just a number and you're running this through the system and you're doing the minimum standard? Because I'm kind of tired about that too, by the way. It's like, well, the state minimum requires this. Like, at some level, if you want to be the state minimum standard, then you know what you're going to be? The state minimum standard. And that's
sorry.
I do feel that.
Striving for something better than the minimum standard.
Well, so if you have or haven't, I mean, in general, like I've talked openly about it. I mean, I really do believe, and I know that we can be as good as any in the region, including, the neighbors to the northeastern portion of our area. I think we can be as good, if not even more so, because we are hungry. And I mean in a good way, not like maybe we'll go get some tacos later, some SuperMex tacos. We're hungry for success. We're hungry for want. We want to be good. We have people moving into our community because they're optimistic and they hope that we can be great.
Mm-hmm.
We're jading them now, and we're losing numbers because they've expected, and the expectation is not met response and action. That's where we are right now in a lot of different ways, and I've seen it over time. I'm staying because I'm a glutton. I'm trying to solve the problem, right? I'm going to say this. My daughter's not gotten what she needed to get, other than from some specific teachers that are really good. And we've had to navigate those waters to try to make it as good as possible. Mm-hmm. But there are clearly some things that I'm like, what the hell, man? I thought this would be way better. So let's do this. We've got a few, 2 minutes, and we got to finish up. So to kind of make sure you get something out of this side, and you're telling me about some things, and the listeners heard from a mom who has kids in the system and where you are and what you see. We have 3 campuses, 1 high school. The plan as of right now is 2021 proposed to build the new high school, but no plan on splitting the 2 that we do have. So what we'll end up with in 2021, if nothing happens, is, and I did this last week, I'm gonna do it again, listener, 4 campuses, 2 high schools. That doesn't solve any problem. That doesn't solve the problem.
No.
That doesn't. We're going to continue to shuttle and bus and all that other stuff. We're not solving the most fundamental, and I want you to really notice that if I didn't care, I wouldn't tell you the truth. But this is the God's honest truth. We're not solving the issue of instructional time in the classroom lost because kids are shuttling or not in the seat. There's nothing more important as a child in the seat learning. Nothing. There's nothing more important, because that's why our system gets paid by the state to educate our children. If they're not in the seat because our system is dictating that they are not in the seat for other reasons, then we are failing them. And now I'm going to say, like you said earlier, we are failing them. We, community, are failing them if we don't make our district do something.
Yeah.
That's
every school site needs to have a specific focus, and those kids shouldn't be bused. If they choose to do the
for the most part, it's just.
Stay
I won't go into too much detail because it's like the elementaries, because of overcrowding, some of them are getting moved around. I don't know as much about that. I do know specifically that the high school in particular, that happens across the board. That's 4,300 students. That's almost roughly a quarter of our entire student population is at the high school. 4,300 students are affected. If you have 1/4 of your population not getting the best possible education, and I'm going to say it, you're failing that education system.
Yep.
Anything, we got 45 seconds. Give me a wrong answer. That's part of my little segment. It's something that's not happening that you can say is like, okay, this is this, and that's a wrong answer. What do you got? It's a wrong answer. Anything that we just talked about. 10 seconds.
I don't know. I'm like,
How about this? How about you're a mom? If you have to if you have to go somewhere else because the system is failing you, that's
safety on the buses.
okay. Safety on the buses. If a child is not safe on a bus to school, when we give them our kids, that's a wrong answer.
Exactly.
Outstanding. Thank you very much, Rachel. Appreciate your time. Stay active, stay involved, stay asking questions. And SuperMex is out. But watch this. Go ahead and take it off.
Okay.
So what I do normally, and this is for a viewer, we're in overtime now.
Okay.
You like that? We're in overtime. So, and it was funny because like last week when we did it with Mike, I talk too much and I talk a lot in general, but it's kind of like, because I'm trying to, we want to direct the things that you guys are giving us so that they're tangible, understandable, and they're meat and potatoes for the listener after we're done. Other than just us having a conversation, right? People could listen in, but if you don't walk away from the conversation with having internalized something that you can go forward with and say, okay, that mom has 4 kids. They're at Liddell, they're going to Rio, and she may not stay because.
Safety on the buses.
Right, there you go. Okay, so they have to hear that. They have to learn that because now a member of our community knows that they're not the only ones dealing with that same thing. Because I'm gonna guess, it's a rhetorical guess.
I transpose my kids, and I won't put them on a bus.
Right.
I won't.
And you're
just because what I saw this morning,
right,
pulling into Liddell, there was a Central Unified bus parked in the parking lot in the U in front of the school. The bus driver had to let the kids out through the emergency exit because the folding doors weren't working.
No way. You serious?
Serious. The bus driver was literally picking up kids like this and taking them out of the bus. No.
I don't even know if I want to know that. Oh, wow.
No, I just went,
yeah.
That's why my kids don't take the bus.
Here's the thing. So, like I said, to make it something, I got to make it a teachable moment. I got to make it something that we can learn. You come on a show and you get to talk about something, or you bring up some things that you are dealing with. I have to make it, and that's why I talk. I will talk so that I get the listener and the viewer to understand that they're not the only ones dealing with said issue, that you are also having the same issue. And you'd be amazed that I'm like, yeah, I'm doing the same thing. Once those people marry and get together and understand they're dealing with the same issue, now we have the ability to get something done. Because unfortunately, I'm going to say it, people in education, like the bureaucracy, right, Byzantine, people in education don't move unless something happens or is wrong or something.
But it should take
and that's the right answer. Okay, that's the right answer. You shouldn't wait for something bad to happen. You should be actively moving to make sure nothing bad happens before.
Be prepared.
In advance. In advance.
It's there's a saying, prepare for war but pray for peace. You need to be prepared. The first things first, a kid cannot function if they aren't safe on a bus. They can't get from point A to point B safely.
Right.
If their mode of transportation isn't.
That's an old military term. Prepare for war, pray for peace. Because it is.
It was one of my drill sergeant's favorite sayings. All the time.
Wait a minute, you were in the Army?
Mm-hmm.
Get out of here.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I didn't know that. Outstanding. Where were you stationed? I wouldn't know that.
Fort Gordon, Georgia.
Gordon.
It's a comma. Communications.
Okay. I wouldn't even know that. I was betting.
Right outside of Augusta, Georgia.
Okay.
It's the big combo.
Here's that. That's how bad I am. I'm like hard-hitted infantry guy, right? We don't know of anything other than ourselves, right? It's bad. So, obviously Fort Benning. Yeah, I do Fort Benning, and then I went to. I was in Germany.
I went. Basic training was Fort Lawson Woods, Missouri.
Okay.
Missouri. Literally, you don't know what direction is which when you get there because there's trees everywhere. You can't see anything.
Georgia's crazy like that. When we used to go train. I mean, it's some dark woods.
Yeah.
Like
it's a special kind of
a quick story. You gotta like this. We were out doing land nav, dark night land nav. Which, if you know.
Did you find any of the quicksand spots?
I didn't find a quicksand spot. You're gonna laugh about this. I fell into a well. No joke. I fell in. Okay, it wasn't like a well, like the brick or thing like that, and then you like fall in like that. It was literally like a hole in the ground, and it was water going down, way down. I never touched the bottom. basically. I fell in night land nav, and I got my night land nav course done, by the way. I got it done. I nearly froze, without exaggeration. I mean, I could have gotten something.
It's really cold.
But it's dark. It is dark as hell out there in those woods.
Yeah.
So I didn't see anything. All I know is that I was falling, and it got cold real quick.
Yeah.
And I dragged it. I'm going to say this, apologize to my viewers, but it scared the hell out of me. I've not been that scared of something. I'm not scared of anything in general. No braggadocio. Just I've lived a big life. I've seen some things, and I've gotten my butt whooped more than a few times all over the world. I have not been afraid of something like that in a long time. I fell into a dark, cold well. And you're in gear, right? I was in full gear.
You will sink like a hot, oh man.
It was crazy. If it wasn't for the fact that it was so small, it wasn't like huge, right?
Yeah.
It was just like here. I don't know. I don't even want to think about it because I immediately reached and I was like a scared cat, in the water, like crazy as hell. But it was land nav.
Yeah.
So I think that's cool as hell. So
land nav sucks.
So listen, so for those of you guys that don't know, and I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to have maybe if you want, you can post this on the Keeping Century Effect because people need to hear this. I think one of the friends did post one a few weeks ago. I got a load of views, but they need to hear the issues. They need to hear and I said up front to anybody that, because you're on Keeping Century Effect too, so some people don't want to hear anything negative.
No, I get.
Okay, I got that. Okay, and I got that. I understand. So here's my caveat, right? Here's my caveat. You don't have to listen.
No,
just don't listen. Okay, but heaven forbid that you actually listen and you might actually hear somebody dealing with the same issues and items that you're dealing with.
And we might just be on the other side political view-wise, but when it comes to the buses.
Well, this stuff should be, and I'll say it, this stuff should be depoliticized. There should be no politicization whatsoever.
It's kids' safety. It's kids' education. If
Right.
you want your child to be successful, you've got to give them the tools to be successful. You can't just be
So I was over
best of luck, sink or swim.
I was over here quoted, if you didn't know, I was quoting the FN 22-100. So, and I didn't even know your prior service. But I literally, I conduct business. I do things with businesses according to 22-100. I actually believed some of that stuff because if you really get down to the meat and potatoes of it, there's good leadership material, better than anything I've ever seen in the civilian sector. And I don't want to be mean, but it's the truth. Yeah. Because if you believe it and you practice it, then it comes out and you're like, wow, man. I've actually had people tell me, like, you're a phenomenal leader. I was like, there's a book. I literally said, there's a book. Yep. Don't just read it, practice it. And you get pretty good at it, and doing things as simple as running an organization or group and giving everybody the opportunity to speak, vent, and give input. And if something fails, it doesn't happen, that's not good, then you accept blame, regardless of whether it's your fault or not. You accept blame. Mm-hmm. And if something good happens, you make sure you let everybody take credit for it. Yeah, everybody gets credit and you don't. And if there's something negative happen, you take the blame for it. Simple things like that, people just don't understand or they take advantage of it. I think I live that way. I don't know about you, but I still think and live that way because I grew up on the street. Like I said, I didn't have a dad growing up after I lost my dad when I was little. It filled a massive gap for me, a void for me. And I just, I put it all in there and I learned this stuff, from some really, really good guys that I got to train with. I don't know if you know this, we'll finish up in a second here, but the Hurricane Katrina thing, I don't know if you know this or not, but there was a guy they brought in prior service. I think he was recently retired. He was a general. He finished as a general. His name was General Russell Honore. If he ever hears this, I want him to hear it. His name was Russell Honore, retired general. He came in and he cleaned Katrina up on the back end after it was a mess, meaning I don't want to talk about it, but it was a mess. They brought this guy in, and he's literally, and I heard the joke, it was like on Good Morning America, one of the shows that he was on, they were interviewing him because of the recent hurricanes and how to deal with hurricanes. He was a cigar chomping, 6'9", he's 6'2", 6'3", raging Cajun from Louisiana. Talking like this, he was, and for my viewers out there, I apologize, but he was a badass. I thought he was like something. I was an infantry soldier of the year in '90, and I got to spend time with him because I won boards and stuff like that. I was a soldier for our post, so I got to spend time with him. I thought he was like He was it for me. About done? So he was it for me, but you're going to like this. So his name was Russell Honore. He's a retired general. He was the one who came in and cleaned up Katrina. And I thought that was so damn cool because he was my commanding leader. But I learned a lot from him. I spent time with him. We were in like a Hummer, and we'd go places, and I just got to spend time with him because I won the award. And just listening to him, watching him, I don't know about you, but I remember a few people that were just like, I still use like as a metric for leadership.
Mhm.
I still do.
Yeah.
They were just so damn straight and honest, Rachel. I mean, like they didn't bullshit play games. They were just straight to the point. They never accepted excuses and they never made them.
And I don't think we
Oh,
did,
man.
especially about the safety on the buses and finding out that
Right.
student had to sit on the floor.
Right.
That's unacceptable.
So you
That
understand,
should
like,
have been
yeah.
done. No.
This is where I'm at.
That's
So
just a
you
straight
and
up
I,
no.
like, you and I are on the same page with stuff like that. It's like it's hard for us to fathom that that's acceptable. Like, what the hell?
I'm sorry. I'm pretty sure most of the staff have children at Central Unified School District. What the hell is wrong with them? Would they say that's okay?
The
for
staff
their
probably would. Well, here's the thing, staff. I know some staff may not even want to come on the show because.
All right, Mitch.
Thank you, Woody.
Mhm.
Appreciate it, brother. May not want to come on the show because they work for the system.
Well, just because you
That's
work for
danger.
the system doesn't mean that, you know.
Some do, but others, well, some that are probably a little more secure and safe, meaning they don't have to worry about like repercussion. But I'm not going to make an excuse for some, but say a younger teacher that maybe is new and worried about holding a job or position, or they're, listen, younger in life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like 20 something or 30, and they just bought a house, they just got a new family. They're not trying to rock the boat too much. I could almost excuse that, because, I'll say, and I'm glad you said it, because now that I know that you're military too, like what you were saying earlier, like, it's our fault. I'll say that. I will blame the district for things that are taking place, like the shuttling thing, because it's been 21 years.
That's
21 years.
That's
That's
ridiculous.
insane.
That
Okay,
is.
But at this point, and I think you got to be with me on this. At this point, it's us now.
Yeah.
Because
We gotta share in that
if
blame.
we accept it and we bury our head in the sand and it continues,
How many students are there in the high school right now?
over 4,300.
Okay, that's
It's a small city.
averaging, one parent per kid. That is 4,300 parents that need to be pissed the hell off and need to get on the phone to the district and say, fix this now. Or every student shouldn't get on a bus.
Right.
There should be a straight up stop to it. See how fast
Now,
they change it.
Okay, since you're seeing, like, let's cut right to the skate, right to the chase, right? If there were no shuttling, instruction time would go up. The kid in the classroom would be better. They'd be smarter.
Mm-hmm.
They'd get more instruction.
Yeah.
The teacher would be able to do their job better. It
Yeah.
really is like it's not that easy. No, it is that easy. It's
No,
really that easy.
but
You have to make a hard decision. You have to peel off the bandage, clean the damn thing out, and get it done. You and I
Cut off
understand
the
that,
dead
but not
tissue.
all of them do.
Cut off the dead tissue. Fix it.
That's pretty much it. All right, so we're gonna cut. I'm creeping back in here. So I can't get all of this. So thank viewer. We'll probably post this on Keeping Central Unified so that a lot of you get it. She's a mom. She's in our system. She's dealing with issues that all of you guys are dealing with. Don't look at it as negative. Look at it as action item. We need to do something. Let us address the issues that face us. Let's not wait on somebody else to do it because I don't know you. I'm tired of waiting. It's been too damn long. So thank you for another week. We'll be back next week with some teachers. And I'm really looking forward to that, to take all the information we've taken from parents, from students, and next week teachers. That's a damn trifecta. That's cross the board, gathering information from all possible sources to come up with the best solutions and answers for our students and for our community. Thank you, Central Unified. You have a great night.